Wait, why is my toilet still running? Oh, looks like another project for my younger life. Stay tuned. Hey, well, let's get at this. We're going to take the back off of the tank. And I know it looks gross in there, but I don't know many people that clean the inside of the tank of their toilets, so please don't judge me. So we're going to try and do some diagnosis real quick. If it were the seal of the flapper or whatever it is in the bottom there, then the tank wouldn't fill up with water. Mine is filling up with water, and I see the float is moving. The float goes up and down on the shaft on the pump there, and it is moving up, but it's not rising up high enough. So it's either got a crack and some water in it, or the pump itself wouldn't be working, because when the water crests the drain tube there, your water should shut off. And that would be this. If I lift up on this, it should shut off. Mine's not. Mine's not shutting off. Kind of gives me an idea that the pump is not working. No adjustments that I've been able to do will change that. So I need to replace this whole piece here. They're not very expensive, and you can get them at most of your local stores. So we're going to shut the water off, because we have to stop the water flow, because we're actually going to disconnect this hose from the underside of the tank. So we're going to empty that bowl out. Drier the better. And I'm going to also use some towels, because we will get some water coming out the bottom of that tank, or at least out of the hose when we disconnect it. I didn't get everything out of my tank yet, so I'm going to also put a towel in there, get all that out, so that we can do this job as neat and efficiently as possible. And here's the directions. Our new pump. They're very good. These directions are very detail-oriented, nice color pictures, helps you work your way through. We've done this page. We've done all of this, so we're actually on the step where we disconnect the pump from the tank. And there is a nut on the underside of your tank where the water comes in. There are actually two nuts there, one that holds the fill line to the pump, and then one that holds the pump to the tank. So we're going to take the water line off first. And mine was really not extremely tight. You may need some vice grips or channel locks to take that off. Mine was really nice. Wasn't overly tightened. And I had to use channel locks just to loosen this plastic nut. It's a tight space here, so I did it without the video, but that's going to come right off of there pretty easily. And mine are plastic for some reason. I like the plastic ones because there's so much water here, the metal ones tend to rust and get very difficult to get off. We're going to remove that tank. Just pops right out. It's pretty nasty. There is some water coming out. I'm thinking my pump may have a hole in it, taking in some water. And we're just going to drop the new one right in. This new one, see, it's real pretty. I like the colors. We're going to drop that in there. It's fully adjustable, a lot like the previous one. And then we're going to also connect our drain tube here. This tube appears to be too long, so I need to get an idea of how short to cut it. I recommend using some good scissors. Couldn't find mine, so I got the next best thing to a pair of scissors. It is the box cutter. I love my box cutter, but you always make sure you cut away from yourself. Don't want any accidents doing this. So there we go. We're going to check our length to make sure it goes back in the holder there into the drain cylinder. And we're going to check our position of our pump as we go. It's not really too difficult. Next thing that we have to do, it's not going to sit in there good until we put the nut on the bottom. So that's next. Let's get our new plastic nut here. Again, this one's just going to hold the pump in place in the bottom of the tank. And it goes on the underside of the tank. Not a hard job. There are different types of tanks. I had a pressure tank, and we couldn't fix that one. And that toilet went out about, I don't know, 10 years ago. We put this one in, And then the old school ones have a long rod with a ball float, and they have an adjustment on the pump side of the ball float that you would adjust. And same thing, that pump can still go out as well. It just has a different type of float. And I turned this because my float was hitting that drain cylinder, and I don't want the pump to touch anything. You want that pump to be able to move, float, to be able to move freely underneath that pump. There we go. So now we're going to connect our water. Connect the water line back under there. We don't need to tighten this extremely, but you do want to get it snug so that you don't have any leaks. And we can get this on there. You want to be very careful. Next, not to forget to reattach your chain. I disconnected my chain just to get in there more easily. The chain length needs to be tight enough to open the drain easily with the lever, but not too tight that it holds it open. I had one time the chain was too loose and the chain would get lodged underneath the drain and it wouldn't fill back up because it was keeping it from sealing. So I'm going to check everything, make sure it's all good and tight, and turn my water back on. We have a few adjustments to make, nothing major. Just depends on how much water, how big your tank is, how big your bowl is. So you do have to make those adjustments because these pumps will fit different size bowls and tanks. This one adjusts the water level that goes into your tank. It just depends on how many gallons your toilet is. And then if you turn this counterclockwise, it will lower your float so it shuts off sooner. When I first installed it was still running just like the other one, so I had to lower the float so it lifts up to shut the pump off sooner, if that makes sense. Just if you lower the float, the water level will be lower. So I could turn it so that the water level wouldn't even get quite up to the top of this drain cylinder if I chose to. And I want to keep it just a little below that. Just a little test to make sure it shuts off when I let it drop back up, and if it does, that's good to go. Looks like we solved that, and this is for that drain tube, the rubber tube that I cut. This was to hold it on to that cylinder. I don't need it for mine, you might, but I don't. Everything's good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this. If it helped you, please let me know. Like and subscribe. Until next time.